Thank you, Doctor. Please. Okay, I'm going to have to confess to failing my first class today. The teacher Miss Baker gave me a Lego and said it's for let's expect great outcomes. I totally missed the acronym. So I guess I'll be in detention this afternoon. Thank you very much. This is I say this occasionally because it occasionally is true, but this is an extraordinary day. And I don't know that there's been a day, at least since I've been in office, when I can say that what we are getting ready to announce is as important and as significant as what we are announcing today. Since taking office, we set the goal to be the fastest improving state in the country when it came to education. Now, we set that goal and said we'd like to be that by 2015. That actually seemed like a fairly aggressive goal. We were coming into office in 2011. State was making great strides before we got there, but we think we can be the fastest improving state in the country by 2015. And we've seen great growth. We've seen great growth in our TCAP scores for the last 3 years, consecutive years, showing really significant gains. But while improvement on our state assessments is really important, one of the things that all of us know, regardless of whether you're a teacher, student, a parent, a legislator, a business leader, you know this, that our students aren't just competing with other students inside Tennessee. We're competing with students all across the world. And we need to make certain that what we're doing in Tennessee measures up to what's happening all across our country. So when I hired Kevin Huffman, who's our Commissioner of Education, Kevin said, about 6 months in, we were having lunch, and I said, Kevin, how will you know if what we're doing is working? We're trying a lot of things that are new and different in Tennessee. How will you know if it's working? He said, the first big milestone will be when we get the NAEP results in the fall of 2013. I said, all right, you're going to have to explain more. NAEP is a national assessment of education progress. It's the one test that's given all across the country in all 50 states. They take a statistical, meaningful sample of students out of all 50 states. And then we test fourth graders and eighth graders in reading and math, so 4 different tests are measured. It's the one thing that really gives you an apples versus apples comparison with how you're doing with the other 49 states around the country. When I ran for office, I said several times, I'm tired of Tennessee being in the 40s when it comes to education. And this is the test I'm referring to because prior to this, we always ended up somewhere 42nd to 47th in test results on the 4th grade, 8th grade reading and math. Well, as you know, the tests were taken last fall, and I've enlisted the help from some students across Tennessee to help us count down the states that showed the most growth in the country in 2013. So let me introduce you to some helpers that I hope we have coming right now. If we could leave that slide up there, because it says more than I could ever say. First of all, that's right. Tennessee is the #1 state for education growth in 2013. But if you look, it really wasn't even close. Hopefully everybody can. Probably shouldn't do that to the flag. But that's us at 21.8, so 22. The next closest was 14.67. We literally blew away the other states when it came to education results. Let me tell you how significant that growth is. The NAEP has been being given for 10 years. In the entire 10-year period, no state ever has shown the gain that Tennessee made this year. You know, when I ran for governor, as I said, I'm tired of Tennessee being in the 40s. And we can now, we can easily say that Tennessee is solidly in the 30s when it comes to 50 states. We moved up a full, it's hard to, the measurement's not exact and precise, but it's safe to say we moved from being somewhere in the 40s to solidly in the 30s of the 50 states. So that is incredible progress. I want to say this, though. While that's a really, really big deal, I know nobody in this room and nobody in the state is satisfied with being in the 30s. It's not who we are as a state. It's not who we want to be. And so I'm really thrilled about these results, but I also see this as a step along the way. I do want to say one thing. It was interesting, like I said, we got a chance to visit 2 or 3 classes before we came here. I never, ever visit a classroom when I don't walk away incredibly appreciative of the teachers in those classrooms. So I know we have some teachers in here. If you're here, would you represent the thousands of teachers across the state of Tennessee who are doing incredible work and stand up and let us recognize you? I heard Governor Bredesen say something 10 years ago or something. He said, you know, you can have all the smart boards, all the wonderful equipment you want in the classroom. I'll trade all of that for one great teacher, and it is true, and we're incredibly grateful for your work that has made this happen. Same with superintendents and principals. Every great institution has a great leader, and the principal, the on-site instructional leader, is proven to be a huge difference for us in the state of Tennessee. I also especially want to thank Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey, as well as our Speaker, Beth Harwell, who is here today. Speaker, thank you very much. I talked to Beth yesterday. Beth was plugging away hard at a lot of these issues long before I ever showed up here, and we're grateful, as well as the General Assembly. It is difficult today to serve in legislative office because lots of people have an opinion about lots of things, and you're forced to make hard decisions. And so several of those members are here today. If you would stand up and let us recognize you, we would be very, very grateful. As governor, one of the things you recognize really quickly that you're there for 4 years or hopefully 8. But regardless, it's a limited window of time, and I've compared it often to a relay race. You take the baton from someone who comes behind you, and hopefully when you hand it off again, your team is in better position than when you got the baton. This particular issue is one in which the state of Tennessee was making great strides prior to our team coming into office. Under Governor Phil Bredesen, Tennessee adopted higher graduation requirements and significantly increased the difficulty of classroom standards across the state. So those of you who think classes are harder now, you can blame Governor Bredesen. No. But he did the right thing. One of the things that I think, again, Governor Bredesen and I are in different political parties. We don't agree on everything by any means. But I think the thing that I most appreciate about him is this. From the very beginning, he said, Tennessee is a state that we need to learn not to settle. We need to learn that Tennessee can be a great state. And I don't think he had the Lego model, but I think it works. So I would like to introduce my predecessor, who I think helped Tennessee get on the road to why we can be the #1 state, Governor Phil Bredesen.
Thank you very much. This is, I can't think of any better news that I've heard about what's going on, the success of what's going on in Tennessee than these things that Governor Haslam just announced up here. I just want to very briefly say two things to you all. First of all, what Governor Haslam said, that it is a relay race, is absolutely right. And I think one of the things which really has helped make this happen in Tennessee, and I say this, you can watch what's going on in Washington right now, is that this effort really has been a bipartisan effort. During the time that I was governor, there are a number of members of the legislature in both parties, Speaker Harwell, who is here, who were all got behind and were very supportive of trying to make some of the changes that happened. You always worry when a new governor comes in and a new party comes in, they're going to say, well, all that stuff is now beside the board and we're going to do things differently. And in fact, this administration has done a wonderful job of putting its own stamp on things, but sort of, carrying the ball forward. And that's what it's going to take in Tennessee. It's going to take, it's not something that's going to happen in 2 years or 4 years. It's going to happen when 2 or 3 or 4 governors in a row really keep our nose to the grindstone and move things along. And Governor, congratulations on the enormous success that today represents. It really is a testimony to sort of putting some of the politics aside and a lot of good people settling down to work together to try to make things in education continue to improve here in Tennessee. Second thing I want to say is I love being up here, and I'm sure Governor Haslam loves being up here and taking some victory laps from this. We've got members of the legislature here. We've got members of the administration. This really is a victory for the teachers in Tennessee and the students in Tennessee. The hope was always, and the belief was always, and I think we both share it, Governor, that if you will ask the teachers, if you will ask the students and tell them what you need them to do, that people will respond, and they absolutely have. So to all of the teachers out there and the superintendents, and especially to the students who are in this room, congratulations. This really is your day. I am very, very proud to be here and be a part of it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Governor. I want to comment on one more thing before I introduce the next speaker. This is an extraordinary, as the superintendent said, it's an extraordinarily rewarding time to be an educator in Tennessee, but it's also an extraordinarily challenging time. If you're a student, like I said, we've raised the expectations. If you're a teacher, there's no doubt that your job has gotten much more difficult, and it's one of the reasons we've also made a commitment to not just being the fastest improving school system in the country, but also to be the state that has the fastest improving in terms of teacher pay, because we want to pay our teachers like the professionals that they are. So it's difficult for teachers. It's incredibly difficult for principals. We're asking them to play much bigger roles. Superintendents are in the middle of a lot of different issues and battles all the way along the line. And please know how grateful, and that we don't take that for granted at all. Another position that's very difficult is being the Commissioner of Education in Tennessee. You make a lot of hard decisions, but hopefully you're always making them the way that I know the person I'm getting ready to introduce makes them, with a commitment to this idea that every child can learn, that there should not be an achievement gap between kids from different zip codes and different racial backgrounds, that we in Tennessee can compete with anybody when it comes to the achievement of our students. I am proud and honored to introduce the Tennessee Commissioner of Education, Kevin Huffman.
I knew I was going to be in trouble when I teared up during the national anthem. Good morning. I am so glad to be able to be a part of this and to be able to talk about this news. Our teachers and our principals and our district leaders have worked so hard over the last few years and demonstrated such an incredible work ethic. And to see this kind of payoff is just incredible. So we had set this goal that by 2015 we would be the fastest improving state in the country. And it's 2013, and I think now we get to say it. We get to say we are the fastest improving state in the country. We're going to have to come up with we have to come up with another goal now. I don't know what that's going to be, but you know, Dr. Setterlin was saying to me when we were talking out in the hall, he said, you know, this is great. He said, you know, now we are not bad. He said, next time we're going to be able to say we're pretty good. And then the time after that, we're going to say we're good. And then the time after that, we're going to say we're great. And I think that's the path that we're starting to get on, which is just incredibly exciting. I want to also tip the hat to Washington, D.C., which had great gains as well. You'll see some of that in the national press, I think. And if they ever attain statehood, then we can fight it out over who the fastest improving state is. But for now, we're just going to claim the mantle. And I'll give you a few details on some of the results. Across math and reading in grades 4 and 8, you can see 22 points. And the question is sort of, what does that mean? Well, people, when they talk about NAEP, often say that 10 points is more or less a year in terms of growth. And we averaged 5.5 points per test, so the 22 points across the 4 different tests. So we grew an average of 5.5 points per test. So to put that in perspective, kids in Tennessee scored literally half a grade farther along than they did just 2 years ago, which is incredible real progress. In terms of how we compare to other states, just to give you a couple of the examples, we were 46th in the country before in 4th grade math, and we moved up to 37th. We were 41st in the country in 4th grade reading. We're now 31st in 4th grade reading. And we did all of this is important, we did all of this while significantly increasing the number of special education students who participated in NAEP. We made this real outreach to make sure that we were including our special education students, that we weren't trying to somehow exclude them from this, and we got this growth while doing that. So we also had incredible gains for our African American students, which is so critically important as well when we look at the achievement gaps across the state. In fact, if you add up the gains for our African American students across the 4 tests, they were even a little bit larger than the gains for the rest of the state, which is really extraordinary progress. So when we think about what does it mean to advance all kids, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about every single child getting a little bit better. So this is the latest and most important result that we've had to date, but it does also confirm what we've seen on TCAP, what we've seen on Plan and Explore. We've had a consistent growth across all of these assessments, and it tells the story that this is real. So I also want to thank our friends in the General Assembly. I want to thank, in particular, Lieutenant Governor Ramsey and Speaker Harwell, and I want to thank Chairman Gresham, Chairman Brooks, Chairman White, who have really provided a steady hand and kept the focus on student outcomes as we've done this work. I also want to thank the State Board of Education, which for years prior to any of our arrival was really focused on higher standards and this concept of higher standards and how do we raise the bar. And I also want to give a huge thank you to Tennessee SCORE, which helped get the state focused on NAEP and focused on national benchmarks several years ago as part of the effort to turn around results. Most importantly, though, we've asked a lot of our teachers, we've asked a lot of our students, and they have delivered. They deserve the thanks for this progress, and I hope that as we all leave here, we feel good about this, but we remember that the teachers who are standing up in front of the classrooms and the students who are in the seats doing harder work than they were doing 2 years ago are the ones who deserve our congratulations and our thanks. And so I want to invite a veteran teacher to come talk to you all about what she's seen change in her own classroom over the last few years. Cicely Woodard is a math teacher in Metro Nashville at Rose Park, and we wanted her to provide a little classroom perspective since that's where the real work happens. Thanks, Cicely.
Thank you, Commissioner Huffman. Whenever I'm absent and my students have a substitute teacher, I returned to school the next day to get an earful of stories about what happened when I was away. "She was so mean," my 8th graders explained with looks of disgust on their faces. "Miss Woodard, please take me with you next time. I can't believe you left us here with her. His mustache made me laugh. Her hair wasn't quite right. Her shoes, her feet, they were too big." Any complaint that you can imagine, I've heard it. On a recent absence, I heard one complaint that took the cake. One of my very studious female students looked me dead in the eye and said, "Miss Woodard, we did our work, but she wouldn't let us argue about math." I got chills. I almost cried. You see, it was the perfect confirmation that the changes that I was making in the classroom were positively affecting my students. You see, arguing about math was that 8th grader's way of describing what has become a very important part of the learning process. My students start with a high-level math task. They have some private think time in which they determine the best possible way they feel to approach the task. After that comes time when they compare their solutions with a partner and work with small groups. And finally, here comes the argument, or what she would describe as the argument. It's the whole class discussion, where students present their ideas, justify their thinking with explanations, and critique the reasoning of others. The goal is to get as many student voices heard as possible, while I facilitate a discussion, allowing me to assess what they know and advance their thinking. In recent years, I have changed from just focusing on new skill acquisition and problem solving and mental math to now concentrating on finding a balance between skill fluency, application, and conceptual understanding. Now, not only do my students know how to do certain skills, but they know when to use it and why they are doing it and why it works. All of this changes the rigor in the classroom and makes for a more richer, more engaging learning environment. The teacher and student roles in my classroom are very different now. I've gone from planning activities to now choosing high-level math tasks that are relevant and meaningful to their everyday lives. I've moved away from being the ultimate source of knowledge in the classroom to now being the facilitator of high-level thinking. My students are no longer just passive listeners. They are actively involved in the learning process. Or as Jayla would say, they're arguing about math. With new standards comes higher expectations. And for me, it has meant a change in mindset for myself and for my students. See, I've got this new mantra. 100% of my students will master 100% of the concepts that I teach. I know that sounds crazy, sounds unreasonable, I know, but believe me, it is a very difficult challenge. But I've gained the trust of my students and built a relationship with them, and they know that I will not leave them in failure. They know that I will reteach, redo, reassess until they get it. They know I won't let them fail. And reaching that expectation starts with me simply believing that they all can critically think and reason at a deeper level. There are no excuses anymore. I can't say to myself, oh, I don't know if she can learn this. She's got an exceptionality. Oh, he's not going to be successful. He lives in poverty. I can't say his mom died or she's the main caregiver for her siblings. None of these excuses are acceptable anymore. I walk into the classroom every day believing that all of them can be victorious, no matter what they've done in the past. I also had to change a few of their minds because many of them walk into class with anxiety and dislike about math. In just a few weeks' time, though, I'm pushing them out the door. They just don't want to leave. They love math class just that much. I am so proud of Tennessee. I'm so proud of what we've done to help prepare teachers for all of these powerful changes. And I am just so grateful to be a part of a movement in education that embraces higher expectations and recognizes what is best for students. Though the work has not been easy, I am so excited to celebrate our recent success, and I am inspired and convinced that we must persist in expecting more so that our students will continue to achieve more. Thank you.
Okay, I have learned enough in this business not to try to follow that, so we are done. But one more time, I really appreciate you being here today. This is I like the way Kevin put it, this is a significant milestone on Tennessee's road to being the very best state in the country. Thank you all very much for being here.